Testing. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Strategic Planning and Budget Public Input Meeting for December 3rd, 2025 to order. I'll call on Tim Brubaker to conduct a roll call, please.
Thank you. Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Craig. Councillor Erb. Present. Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Gowing.
Present.
Councillor Harris. Councillor Hunick.
Present.
Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Liggett. Councillor McCabe. Present. Chair Nowak.
I'm present.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Present.
Councillor Salonen.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Verbanovich.
Present.
And Councillor Wolf.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, our land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge the land on which we gather today as the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the Shinotan peoples. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous peoples with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our country. Are there any conflicts of interest? Seeing none. We'll start with our delegations. I'd like to remind delegations of some guidelines with regard to participation. If you are attending in person, please proceed to the podium when you are called upon to speak. If you are attending virtually, please turn on your microphone and camera when called upon. You will have 5 minutes to speak if you are registered before the deadline, 3 minutes if you are registered afterwards. This is new now. Your time will show yellow on the light in front of you when you have 1 minute remaining, and red once your time has lapsed. Additionally, some reminders. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will be an immediate removal from the meeting. Interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others, turning your camera on at an inappropriate time, and hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations. Do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from our community members. And a quick reminder to the members of the audience, you are asked to maintain order. This means you may not address council without the permission of the chair, interrupt anyone, disrupt the meeting with unreasonable noise or vocal expression such as applause, booing, or cheering, and display signs of posters. Excuse me. So we'll go right to delegations. I believe our first one, Kate Klassen, is not here yet, but she will be soon. So we're going to move to Mark Eggers of the Waterloo Region Police Association. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Nowak, and good evening, members of Regional Council. The Waterloo Regional Police Association is the elected and unifying voice of over 1,300 sworn and civilian police personnel who proudly serve all communities within our region. Waterloo Region continues to be the fastest growing metropolitan area in Canada. Our members face significant challenges in meeting the demands from residents, students, and visitors alike. There are simply not enough uniformed officers to respond to calls for service and community demands. I've raised this same issue over my last several delegations, and I will continue to advocate that to match this growth, we need a greater investment in our members. The WRPA is supportive of the vision regarding the Public Safety Communications Center, as it will have a direct benefit not only for our members in both communications and frontline roles, but also in emergency response more broadly in the region. Creating efficiencies saves time, and saving time saves lives. When someone calls 911, every second matters. I commend the current Police Service Board and Chief Crowell for recognizing the staffing shortage and taking steps to address it. From 2022 to 2025, WRPS and the Police Service Board have added 90 new sworn member positions. This, along with the expansion of civilian support positions, is progress towards more sustainable staffing levels, but it's not enough to undo the chronic underinvestment that has plagued our service under previous leadership and board. Nor is it enough to address the exponential growth and demands of this region. From 2013 to 2018, only one sworn officer was added to our overall complement, despite the region's population growing immensely. Present day, the WRPS continues to remain below the Big 12 and provincial averages for officer per population ratio. The chronic understaffing has led to members regularly stepping up to fill gaps through overtime, which is not sustainable financially or in terms of member wellness. This underinvestment has had long outlasting effects, leading to increased officer workload, burnout, longer wait times, and reduced closure rates. Members are left picking up the burden and wear the effects of being unable to spend time with their families due to excess hours and the inability to access time off from their own banks. When we underinvest in policing, our members suffer, and as a result, so does the community. In addition to these challenges, the complexities of policing are increasing. Policing now involves significant partnerships with social services, healthcare, and community groups, as officers are frequently the first point of contact for individuals with issues like mental health crisis or addiction. Officers must address complex social issues, including domestic violence, homelessness, and food insecurity. There's a shift from a solely law and order approach to one focused on community wellness and partnerships, driven in part by provincial legislation like the Community Safety and Policing Act. The WRPA is committed to ensuring that our members are equipped to handle these complexities, but this requires ongoing investment and support. I want to touch on one aspect of the Community Safety and Policing Act that should not affect our members. It's the legislative requirements that services are mandated to meet. These additional staff should not take away from the numbers that we desperately need. There have been some positives. Earlier this year, the WRPA and the board successfully reached a multi-year renewal agreement that was fair, competitive, and met the needs of our members while achieving the board's objectives. This agreement included provisions to enhance our recruitment competitiveness. In collaboration with the chief and his leadership team, we introduced several programs to support recruitment, such as a cadet program and a program that enabled qualified civilians to become sworn officers. We also launched a part-time officer program to cover specific duties that were pulling officers off the road. These initiatives demonstrate collaboration and show the association as a strong partner in these efforts. The parameters are in place for success, but we need staffing commitments. While I support the proposal for 2026 expansion that has been presented to council, my position is we need more than the ask, but I also understand fiscal responsibility. I would advocate for a more stable year-over-year staffing model linked to population growth, workload demands, and attrition to ensure predictable staffing for our frontline and support units. It is essential to continue investing in our police service to ensure that we have the resources to protect and serve our communities effectively. And I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Mark. Right on time. Do we have any questions for Mark? I'm seeing none. Oh, Barry? It's not.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to really take this opportunity to thank you, Mark, for coming in today, and to thank the women and men of the Waterloo Region Police Department for the great work that you do day in and day out, serving our community. It's as someone who's had the opportunity to witness firsthand many times out on the road with members over the years, you get a real appreciation for the challenges that they deal with, and as you've indicated, they only get more complex. And I really wanted to touch on that for a moment in terms of a question, and as you speak to some of the challenges, particularly in terms of crime complexities and numbers and so on. As we look at our numbers and do the comparisons from a staffing level point of view, we are it seems lower than a number of the other departments. And I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about how that limits, in particular, proactive activities by the officers, because they're so tied up with the reactive stuff because of the volume that they're dealing with. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that and how a longer term staffing strategy may actually be helpful in that regard.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Our officers are call to call to call. and there's very little time for proactive policing. We often hear from the communities, them saying, I haven't seen a cruiser in my area I can't remember the last time. And I can go back, years ago from when I started, we had that proactive time. But it was a simpler time then as well. The communities and there's so much to ask from policing because we've always been the first ones there on a critical call. But it's gotten more complex. It really is. We've been asked to do more, and unfortunately, we're just called to call. And certainly, if we had proper staffing, we'd be able to do that proactive policing. And let's face it, if criminals are and people who even create crimes are situational, if they see a police presence, they move on. And maybe they don't do it at all, but they certainly won't do it where they're focusing on. All they have to see is a cruiser go by, and that's a deterrent all in itself.
100%, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, certainly that's been, my experience over the years, and why things, like beat officers and all that kind of stuff. Yes, the world changes, but that's really important because that presence both deters people, but also gives a level of comfort to the broader community. And whether it's in the downtown or seeing bike cops in neighborhoods and so on, those are the kinds of things I often hear about from residents who are looking at some of the priorities that need to happen in that regard. And I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about, because I know there's always this debate about, yes, technology is helpful, and we're using technology in various aspects of policing now, whether it's stuff like red light cameras, or whether it's using AI or different things like that. Cameras that the police department is deploying in various parts of our communities. But we also know that real life engagement is really critical, because the one thing I hear from frontline officers and association representatives like yourself and so on is, without that, we don't get, for example, in the same way, the drunk drivers, the suspended licenses, no insurance, the list goes on, and the truth, that same thing can be said. Yes, a camera can be helpful in terms of helping solve a problem afterwards, but isn't necessarily always a deterrent like a real life person is. And I'm wondering if you can just comment on that.
Yeah, Councilor, I couldn't agree more. It's there's nothing like people interaction, and an officer just driving through or walking through a neighborhood or downtown, that interaction, there is so much information to be gained from just a simple interaction with a person, whether it be a suspicious vehicle that they've seen in their area that didn't bother phoning in, but if you have that face-to-face interaction that you learn about, and that goes to deterring crime and solving crime. Certainly, I mean, I'm not a proponent of the cameras, but I mean, in the school zones, maybe they have an effect, but nothing like a cruiser. I can guarantee you that, because people know they're there, but the cruiser can act immediately. So that face-to-face. I'm sorry?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say thank you very much for that. And again, please pass on my thanks to the frontline women and men that serve the department.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Colleen, Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair Noack. Thank you, Mark, for coming in and delegating with us to us this evening. Just have a question regarding your comments around the communication center, and wanting to hear your perspective on why the support for it. As you know, many have mentioned around this table just the cost of that communication center, and why you believe that it is necessary now to invest in that, and in particular hearing about, the need for officers to be proactive. I just want to get your perspective and why the need right now for that communication center, and if it will be effective in preventing crime with the need that you've demonstrated that we have.
Yeah, and I can, thank you, Councilman. And I can speak to this. In 2012, I was promoted to sergeant, and Mark Crowell, Chief Crowell, was also promoted to sergeant in 2012. Now he was promoted before me, which I'm still trying to get over, but I'll get over it next year. But we worked together side by side, and when we first got promoted, we were the sergeants in the communication center. We each were in charge of a platoon of communicators. So I worked in there for over 2.5 years, and that was 2012, and it was past its prime then. So right now, it is way past its life. It really is. It's not conducive to a healthy work environment for our members. There are no windows. It's just cement blocks, and the technology is just not there. So again, I go back to our staffing problem that I perceive and know of, that nothing was done for years, and nothing has been done for this communication center for many, many years. So in my view, it's way overdue. And certainly the efficiencies that can be gained, again, will get our officers there quicker to save our community.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Oh, there you go. I see no more questions, and thank you once again for sharing your insights with us, Mark. I'll call on Kate Glasson now. You have 5 minutes, Kate.
Good evening. I have come before you to give you an alternative idea. My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's the ask this year is for an increased budget for the police by 120 million. Was that it? Is that the total? Anybody?
Do we have that?
Just 20 million. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I had the numbers right.
That's all right.
So 20 million. I would like to propose that rather than just stump up an extra 20 million right away, we think about taking 10 million of that and putting it into social programs, okay? What I'm suggesting is that Toronto recently stood up response teams for crisis. Things like wellness checks, suicide calls, mental health calls, those kinds of things, okay? Cost them about $40 million to do. They're about 4 times our size, more or less, the City of Toronto. So my hope is that with that 10 million, we could stand up a bunch of teams of people like that, social workers, nurse practitioners, de-escalation experts, whatever you think is appropriate for that kind of team, and set them up with technology that allows them to call the police if they need them, okay? So they've got panic buttons, right? And the more of them that push, the further along the graduated response we go, sort of thing. So that kind of change would, I think, help make those kinds of interactions much less fraught for people. There are some things that are not best solved by people carrying firearms, okay? That's just true. So we need to find a way to balance their security and safety with their ability to intervene in ways that police officers are not equipped to and never have been equipped to, and nor should they really. It's not their position. Right? It's not their job. They're there to enforce the law rather than deal with somebody's mental health crisis or things like that. We have professionals for those jobs. I'm saying let's let the professionals do their jobs and let the police do their jobs, okay? So I'm not saying we defund the police, as it were. I'm saying we think carefully about how much we increase their budget by and that we consider an alternative. Because it is my belief that that kind of upstream funding, okay, that kind of diversion thing, okay, other things you could take some money and build an arts center, right, with classes for people and artists in residence and things like that. Because there aren't any third spaces in this region much anymore, okay? There aren't places for people to go, especially youth. So let's put some places up. If they've got places to go and things to do, maybe they're not going to get in trouble so much. Okay? That's how diversion works. And I think it would be a much more valuable approach than simply throwing more money at enforcement. All right? We need to move away from systems that are focused on carcerality, imprisoning people, and toward systems that reduce crime at the source, okay, that create conditions conducive to people not needing to turn to crime, okay? So that's basically my idea. I don't have much else to add, so I'll leave it there.
Well, thank you very much, Kate. And we do have a question from Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks, Kate, for coming in, and I appreciate you keeping sort of close tabs on what happens at municipal governments, both at the city level and at the region. So thanks very much for your time tonight. And certainly, I think you'd get no argument from people around here around addressing the root causes. And so I'm just curious if you had delegated at the police services board when if you were aware that they had public consultation sessions and if you had gone to those. And I was also just curious if you were aware of the community safety and well-being plan, because that's a process that's in place. I don't really know all the details about it, but I know that staff around here certainly, like there's a new executive director that was just hired, and I think some of the work at the community safety and well-being plan are partly it's there to address some of the concerns that you're raising, because you're right, quite frankly, you have to address some of the root causes to hopefully prevent people getting involved in the justice system or with police and that in the first place. But I just wanted to make sure you were aware of the community safety and well-being plan. I can send you a link to it if that's helpful. We also, of course, at the region have the upstream fund that we have continued to, and a lot of the work that's there is to look at root cause issues. But my real question was, were you able to, or were you aware that you could delegate at the police services board?
No, I was focused on, I've been helping somebody apply for asylum from the States.
Oh, okay.
A trans woman out in BC. So I've been supporting that person pretty solidly for the last 6 months or so.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't had a lot of time to do anything else.
Right, okay.
But, and I do know the community safety plan because I was actually on the committees, the regional committees that were doing that before the provincial government required the safety plan.
Oh, great, okay.
So I was on those committees during COVID and so on, the community safety committee and things like that. So, yeah, I'm well aware.
Well, good luck with that does take a lot of work on the asylum side, I imagine. But I can send you a couple of links to the police services board, and the meetings are public. I don't know if you can go in person or you watch online, et cetera, but that may be a place that you want to share
Where would they meet?
Pardon me?
Where would they meet?
I'm not sure. I can send you the information.
Right. I'm asking because I'm on transit. And so if they're meeting out on Sports World Drive, then no, I'm not going to be able to go.
Yeah, I don't know if they meet. I think there is an online option, though. So
Okay.
I'll send you that information, though. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I see no more questions. Thank you once again. Kate, I'll now call on Cheryl Purcell. Cheryl is in person, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to address this body. Our family moved to Waterloo in 2020. We love the area and especially our neighbors and all their pets. I voted in the municipal election based primarily against the speed limit changes because of the cost implications. As a homeowner and a single parent of two, I need to highlight that our Canadian income taxes have increased along with basic costs. My kids are competing with salary supplemented others for jobs. Our government has incentivized employers to not hire Canadians by subsidizing with Canadian taxpayer money. Imagine that. Our streets and encampments are flooding with hopelessness. My coffee, butter, and protein have at minimal doubled since 2020, which was a pivotal year. Waterloo region unilaterally shut down, contrary to measured science. I lost my freelancing bookkeeping opportunities because small to medium businesses were hit so hard, many didn't survive. Now I work for a great company that has had to weather the Russian embargo and a reckless tariff war, both costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, neither of which involve Canadians directly, but we're paying. I work with drug-addicted homeless folks that bring these matters up often. Private taxpayers don't get bonuses, wage increases, nor pensions. We pay multiple local, provincial, and federal taxes with after-tax dollars by companies that are taxed. We need a reprieve. We need to develop some resources. We need to build up new businesses. We need to employ our Canadian youth. My 2026 plan and budget is just keeping up. I have no vacations, no big purchases, because there's no surplus in my household. Please be exceptional and stop the exploitation of the Canadian dutiful taxpayer. And do not increase our property taxes, not even 0.5%. I know this is against the norm, and you may have pressure to increase, but please consider the broader impact, the ethics of fair representation, and do not increase anything at all, and sincerely represent your constituents. I kindly emphasize that my opinions are echoed throughout the grocery line, office, water coolers, neighbors, and friends. And almost 150 years ago, our Governor General established in 1879 Canada's official reverence to the divine, the Almighty, with which Canada has been blessed with bountiful resources and convictions in keeping with our Christian foundation. That's all I have to say.
Oh, thank you very much. Cheryl, I don't see any questions at this time, so I'm going to move to Brian Paul.
So do I win? No increase?
I'm sorry?
Do I win? No increase? Is that unanimously? Thank you, guys. Awesome. Be blessed. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your concerns.
Good evening, Chair and members of Council. My name is Brian Paul, and I'm the Executive Director for Supportive Housing Waterloo. SHOW provides permanent housing and support for people who have experienced homelessness, including many older adults. Building on the previous delegations by my colleagues Rick and Sharon and on Mike Farwell's column in the record, I'm here to request that the 2026 regional budget include a one-year pilot offering one free day of Grand River Transit per week for residents 65 years and older. The number of older adults in our region is growing rapidly, and many are living on fixed incomes while facing rising costs for housing, food, and medication. Older adult homelessness has risen by 55% in the last 2 years, and the number of adults aged 65 plus on the supportive housing waitlist has doubled in just this last year. Single seniors are the fastest rising group using the food bank nationally, and about 35% of seniors rely solely on CPP, OAS, and GIS, which together provides only about $27,000 a year. It is a myth that they are financially secure. Transportation is a key driver of health and independence. The Schlegel UW Research Institute for Aging identifies transportation and financial barriers as primary causes of isolation. This pilot removes both. It is proactive, preventive, and rooted in evidence. It will allow older adults to stay healthier, use fewer emergency services, and remain connected to their communities. The Affordable Transit Program, ATP, was built with good intentions, but it is not accessible for many older adults. It requires online applications, income verification, travel to a downtown location, and digital literacy. All major barriers for people with limited mobility, technology, or support. And even with the discount, fares remain out of reach for many. This pilot removes all of that. No forms, no verifications, no barriers. If you're 65 or older, you ride free 1 day a week. Simple as that. Many older adults are living longer but can no longer drive and learning a new transit system. New routes, payment methods, and technology can be and is intimidating. This pilot offers a low-pressure way to build comfort and confidence using the GRT. Other cities have shown once they learn this system, they continue riding on the paid days. This is a proven model. Across Ontario and beyond, from Brampton and Burlington to Montreal, Ottawa, and Halifax, seniors already ride free on designated days. Mississauga has gone further, moving to full-time free transfer for adults 65 plus through its regular budget process. With these programs, overall ridership rises. Mississauga saw a 30% increase, Kingston 40%, Oakville 578%, and Guelph 16% on the free day they have, which actually led them to extend their pilot into 2026. It is time for Waterloo Region to join them. Which brings me to cost. In most cities, these programs are absorbed within existing operations with no dedicated budget line. Mississauga confirmed this by approving its program through regular fees and charges, not a new tax levy. Critically, seniors travel outside peak hours, filling existing off-peak capacity when buses already have the room. And while the region faces a transit shortfall, it underscores the need to invest in programs that grow ridership and maximize existing capacity. That is why a one-year pilot is the right approach. Low risk, measurable, and immediately beneficial. To be clear, this is a ridership building initiative and not a cost adding measure. Other cities have shown it can be done with no new cost. No new cost. This one-year pilot, just 1 year, will change lives, as it has in every community that has implemented it. The question now is whether Waterloo Region will stand alongside them. For many, one free day is not transit policy. It is the difference between isolation and independence, between being forgotten and being seen. This is not charity, it's not special treatment, it is dignity and equity for the very people who help build this community, this region. Thank you for your time and for your leadership.
Thank you, Brian. We do have some questions for you. We'll start with Councillor Hudnik.
Thank you, Chair Nowak. Thank you, Brian, for coming today. Like you, I want to remove barriers for seniors and for everyone to ride transit. I thank you for pointing out that like a 52-day pilot might actually increase revenue overall. Where my brain is going is that maybe this doesn't have to be an either or, maybe it could be a both and, so that we maintain ATP and we offer this pilot. And so with that, I know that you spoke to a few of the barriers to ATP being online literacy and so on and so forth. I wonder if you could elaborate on some of those, and maybe if the Commissioner of Transit would be willing to follow up with you in regard to removing some of those.
Yeah, I spoke to the Infrastructure Committee, I think it was in the spring or summer, about the 10-year business plan. And that's where I first broached this idea. And I believe it was Councillor Fox, and you asked about the ATP program. And I admit at the time I didn't know enough about the program, but I've since done a lot of investigating about that program. It has great intentions. It means well. But when I've started, we made a shift at SHOW to start working with an older adults specific population. And what we're finding is that they have real digital, not just people at SHOW, but a lot of older adults have challenges with mobility. Getting around, going to a fixed location is a barrier. And doing online applications, and every single year having to prove that you don't make enough money to be eligible for the ATP program is actually demeaning for them. I've spoken to these individuals who are using the ATP program, and they appreciate what it's trying to do, but it's still not enough. Many are living on $27,000 a year. And like
Or less.
what I go back to when I think about me first speaking to the group is so many others are already doing this. And not only are they doing this, they're leaning into furthering this program, opening up for more days. Really, we need to get up to speed on this. And I know the people I've spoken to here are caring, compassionate people. Really, we should be doing this. I mean, this is about, my approach through this is not just let's talk about compassion and equity and dignity, but there has to be a return on investment for GRT. And I'm here to tell you that overall ridership does rise when you have this program.
I'm going to encourage you to email the Waterloo councillors so that maybe we can continue this conversation offline.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Brian, for coming in. Can you give us more specific examples where what cities have learned from doing this?
Well, what they've learned is that overall ridership rises, so I'm just reiterating what I've already said. But they've found that this program is worth keeping and actually expanding. And I use the latest example is the Mississauga one. So that's why I mentioned it twice, because they are the latest example of not only sort of doing this full time, but also showing that it can be done without tapping into the budget. And I think that's important. We're here at a public consultation for the budget, and I'm mindful and cognizant about how something like this would have implications or negative implications for the budget. And I'm here to tell you that it will not have any.
Okay. So did they find that ridership increased not just on the day that it was free?
Yep. What happens is that older adults who, we're finding that they're living longer and they are no longer able to drive. So what they have to do is start using the GRT, and it's frightening and it's intimidating for them. Once they get comfortable with the GRT, they do start using it on the paid days.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. You're absolutely right. I was reading some information on it, and ridership with seniors went up about, I think it was said 75%, based on the knowledge. The intimidation's gone after that first ride or those first few rides, and they start to feel connected again. We will pick on Mr. Spooner later about how we're going to make this work if it's possible, but if it's got nothing to affect the tax levy, then I don't see why we wouldn't do it, but I will be educated on that later. But yeah, I was surprised at the data I read from several centers on the success of this program, and actually it increased a lot of ridership. And they went places with their grandkids or their family now because they weren't as intimidated. So I think it's not a bad thing to really evaluate. Thank you.
And it's a real thing. I'm 53, about to turn 53, and I've never ridden the GO train. I'm from Toronto. And I was kind of nervous about taking it to go here to go see a Neil Young concert. My wife, thankfully, is from Milton, and she showed me how to use the GO train. And if I was alone, and I'm saying I would have figured it out, but I'm just saying it got me thinking about how you're 70 years old, you're 75, 80 years old. You've been driving all your life, you no longer have your license, but you need to get downtown, you need to go to a doctor, you need to go to the library, and how intimidating and frightening that is for them. Let's make it as low barrier as possible. Let's get them on the GRT, let's get them comfortable, and they will start riding.
I don't remember 53.
Okay, we have one more question. Chair Redmond.
Thank you very much. How are you defining senior?
65 plus. So there's a shift. In general, if you're talking about 50, 55, 60, we use the term older adults. At SHOW, we use the term older adults and then sometimes have an age to it. But to be officially 65 plus is a senior.
I appreciate your motivation, and I see Rick in the audience, been here many times. If I look at the intention and I look at some of the statistics that you're providing, I wonder if I was a driver or of a bus or some place in the GRT, how I would determine if Wednesdays are seniors' days, if somebody's a senior, or do you just let everybody on? And so if you look at the implementation, those are the questions I have. And you may already be aware, I'm going to look at Commissioner Spooner to see if he's going to nod. We actually have a team of people that will go out to seniors and teach them how to use the GRT. I'm not suggesting this is an either or, but that is a resource that I've seen used very, very effectively. Specifically in Cambridge, there were 2 groups that I was with that learned how to ride the bus. So those resources do exist.
Absolutely, they do. And my mom came here from Newmarket and had no idea how to ride the GRT and had no idea about that program. So it's there and it's something, but we can do more. We can do more. We need to provide a low barrier way for these older adults, 65 plus, to get onto the GRT.
So if your mom moved to Waterloo Region, we would be able to give her that.
Well, she's here. She's here now. She moved, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Once again, Brian, thank you very much for your time and your obvious passion for this issue.
Thank you very much.
I'll now call on Rodney Chan, I believe. Kate I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. Kate LG? Kate, you have 5 minutes. Can you turn the...
That's what I had to do. Thank you. So my name's Kay LG. I'm a resident of Waterloo. I have a GRT card, and I was one of these people that decided, as I approached retirement, that I was going to learn how to use the GRT. But I'm pretty unique, as I'll show you in a minute. But I'm also a member of Green WR, which is an organization, very grassroots organization, that's encouraging sustainable development. So do I advance my slides, or do you advance? Yeah. So I was really struck by Tova Davidson's presentation to you on, I think it was November the 18th, where she said, we need to budget for sustainability. And that's really important to us. And if we have the next slide, and I think it will be important to you too, because if you look in that lower left-hand corner, you'll see that it will reduce our future taxes. I mean, here we are talking about budget. We talked about, I agree with Brian, that transit, it could be the increasing transit ridership would not be a budget issue, but here's another reason to do it. If we take measures that improve our sustainability, our environment, reduce climate change, then that will save you money in the long term. So if you're planning to run again, you'll be interested in this. Next slide, please. Because greenhouse gases from transportation are a major source of CO2 in the region of Waterloo. So that's one of the reasons why I'm particularly concerned about it. Next slide. Here's the main reason. My granddaughter. My two-year-old granddaughter, and I'm sure all of you have grandchildren or younger people in your lives, and you're concerned about the world that we're bringing to them. Next slide, please. So there's some things, I agree with what Brian said, that I think it's really important to expand the ridership, partly for financial reasons, and I think that there's some things that GRT needs to do or can do that will help this, like don't make service cuts to the existing routes. I listened to the presentations that were on November 18th. I think there may be some more tonight. And I think expanding the transit ridership by getting more seniors on the bus, and I would make them buy a GRT card. I wouldn't have the drivers say, are you eligible or not? Get them to get the card, because that's step one. And even that isn't as easy as it could be. Because I think the other thing we need to do is investigate the barriers to seniors' transit use. So next slide, please. So this is a group of people I've known for about 20 years. They're people I've gone to Aquafit, 7 a.m. at the Waterloo Recreation Complex. We're all getting older. In that group, there's one other person besides me that owns one of these cards. And so I've watched, sadly, as a number of these people have become unable to drive. They may have lost their license, or they just chose not to, or finally we persuaded them, really, you shouldn't be driving, you know. And for some of them, it's not an issue. They can have a tab with a taxi cab. company or they can afford Ubers, others not. So I've watched them become socially isolated unless they can find someone to drive them. So I think it's really important we get that transit use happening. So next slide, please. And so breaking down those barriers is important. Brian spoke about some of those. I think Ride a Bus is a great introduction. I've heard great things from people. There's a program in the city of Waterloo using naturally occurring retirement communities, and people in that told me it's really great. They had the GRT people come out. They were really excited. But in Waterloo, it's at the recreation complex, and there's no bus stop there. So, I mean, I think getting bus service to Waterloo Rec Complex is really important because that's a huge barrier. But there's some other things we can do. Next slide, please. I think we can entice. Another method would be in promoting the group pass, getting people on that bus, maybe doing a Jane's ride or something during Jane's Walks. That's another thing I do, I coordinate Jane's Walks. But use that group pass that gets 5 people on for $12 for a day and take them around the region on the bus. So that's one other idea I have. Next slide. And other things we can do to encourage transit are things that you as municipal councillors, many of you are, is to encourage transit-based development. Discourage car-dependent development, like these rural suburbs that we're approving. And also look at voluntary green or high-performance development standards. For example, you could incentivize developments which would had high transit scores or were close to amenities and so on. So I think there's a number of things we can do.
Okay, your time is up. Okay, but we do have some questions for you.
Okay.
And Pam Wolf, or Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for coming in.
Okay.
I know you emailed some of your ideas. You've got some great ideas. And is there anything else that you would like to say that you didn't get to finish?
No, that was all I was going to say. And I'm sorry I didn't watch out of the corner of my eye better.
Oh,
but
no, you were doing very well.
I think it's a win-win. You know, I mean, it can be a break-even proposition, a pilot program like this. And also, if it reduces our greenhouse gas emissions, that will reduce other costs in the future. And that's the main thing that I think is important about this program.
I really liked your idea of a Jane's ride.
Yeah.
Using the bus.
Yeah, so I'm going to propose that to some leaders, and it might be fun to talk to the GRT people about that too, and just do it. I mean, like, Jane's Walks are walking conversations. Why not have a walking bus ride? And also get to different places. You know, you usually have 3 or 4 stops in a Jane's Walk, so you can have 3 or 4 stops in a Jane's Ride.
Yes, okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
And Councillor Hunig.
Through the chair. Thank you, Kay, for coming in. It's good to see you. I'm understanding that in addition to the environmental impacts, the idea of a 1-day-a-week pilot for seniors might actually increase revenue 6 days a week, which would be a really good thing. Do you happen to know, in other municipalities that have run the Seniors Day program, how do they verify age and eligibility for free transit?
I do not know that answer. I'm trying to remember if I was asked for that, you know, when I got my pass, but that would be the thing to do it, because I really want people to get this plastic card, you know, because if you don't have that, it's another barrier. You know, you don't have the change one day, or you don't, you know, something.
Brian probably knows, and I will follow up with him. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, thank you through you, Chair, and thank you, Kay. You're always a really great advocate. I know we see you at Waterloo City Council as well as here, so thanks very much for your continued advocacy. I just also want, I don't have a question, I just wanted to let you know that we are working on a carbon budgeting process as well. It's a big process, so I think we're like taking it kind of in chunks, so I just wanted to let you know, just to your point about we know the costs are going to increase.
Yeah, what
with-
municipalities can do.
Yeah, it's one of the things we can do, and costs are going to increase because, particularly for our infrastructure with, weather-related and wild storms and things like that. So I did want to let you know that is still on our agenda. Thank you.
Glad to hear.
Okay, thank you very much, Kay. We'll now call on Damien McHale. Damien, you have 5 minutes.
I'll try and keep it shorter than that. Good evening, everyone. Hello, Chair and Regional Council. So today I'm walking kind of a weird line. For one, I'm here speaking on behalf of the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association and as president of WUSA. And because of that work and my conversations with students about how they interact with their communities, what they wish to see from their region, why so many talk to me about wishing to stay, because of that work, that's why I'm here to speak in favor of protecting transit in the region. But I'm also here today because this is an issue I care deeply about. Being one of the many students in this region who continue to happily use public transit to get around, I've continued to be impressed by a regional council who seem to truly understand how to build a sustainable and financially coherent region. Through continued investment in public transportation over the years, we've built a system in Waterloo in which residents feel comfortable leaving their cars behind, picking up their student cards with their U-Pass or a fare card, and get to experience the city unencumbered. Through these investments, this aspect of residents' lives has not only gotten easier and cheaper, but by making it easier to choose transit over their cars, we've eased the strain on our infrastructure, leading to long-term financial savings for the future and building more walkable, livable neighborhoods. When students talk to me about this regional council, that is the story I give them every time. That though things have always been complicated, this regional council has always pushed to push things forward, prioritizing long-term improvements over short-term decision-making, which has plagued so many other municipalities. That story was only reinforced by the motion this council passed not too long ago, passing a strong and comprehensive GRT business plan, but also committing to building the second phase of the ION. Today, I'm delegating for the first time in a long while because I'm struck by this. What we have in front of us is a transit budget, which is contrary to our own stated goals. In particular, the cuts to Route 9, 13, 19, and 30 are cuts to routes students have told us that they rely on. These cuts aren't just in peak service, but also, not just in off-peak service, but also to peak service as well, giving residents no time of day in which they can reliably move around. Through these cuts, we risk a transit death spiral, and this is not what we committed to doing just a couple of months ago in the GRT business plan. My questions are simple. One, how am I supposed to comfortably look my students in the eyes and tell them that same story of optimism and progress if we decide to move forward with this budget as is? And how would this council be expected to be taken seriously when talking to the provincial and the federal government about funding for the ION if we pass a transit budget which turns its backs on students and riders today? I've always tried to remain optimistic, and that won't end today, but I hope the council hears the many delegations that we have today, focus on transit and protecting our transit, and pulls back on these cuts so I can turn back to young people in Waterloo and tell them that same story. Thank you.
Thank you, Damon. We do have some questions. Councillor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, Damien, thanks for being here, and thanks for the conversations leading up to today. I think it's been really helpful to understand where the WUSA student body is at and the priorities there. One of the things that we were talking about today at Budget Committee was potentially the opportunity to bring to maintain that 15-minute service at peak times outside of off-peak. I know you briefly, I think you mentioned it as, yeah, if you want to go for lunch at 11:30, there's you know that bus is coming, but would that be something that you and the students might be open to as a short-term measure with a caveat that we'll keep monitoring ridership, and if there is a need to respond to it at that off-peak time, we could have that conversation at that point. I want to find a way to work with our colleagues here to get some, preserve some of this while fitting into the bigger conversation that we're having about our budget. So just curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it would be very welcome if, and that's why I was using very careful language about, pulling back on some of that stuff, because I think there are ways to improve service by stopping at least some of those cuts in the on-peak service. I will say we would still be dealing with the issue of cuts to transit when we're trying to lobby the government to fund that transit on the ION. So I think if we really want to make that progress on those even greater investments that we might be able to get from the province, if we're talking about savings, the stronger our lobbying there, the more money we'll be saving in the long term. But that is definitely something that I think it would at least give riders something they can rely on.
Totally agree, and I think one of the things when we think about some of the routes that you've highlighted today is that they serve high school students, they serve residents of North Waterloo, and certainly the broader network. So thanks for being here.
Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Damien, thanks for being here and presenting and all of your advocacy over the years, you and the team there with WUSA and the advocacy groups. I have a question. You and I and Councillor McCabe, or Councillor/Mayor McCabe spoke last week about the proposed cuts, but you mentioned something about the frequent transit network. Can you speak to that? I don't have my other notebook here, but it was a discussion that came up in our conversation. Can you just speak to that a little bit, the suggestion there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit when the kind of GRT business plan came out. One of the things that was really exciting to students was that kind of frequent transit proposal that was being made. I think one of the things that a lot of people kind of might miss when they're talking about transit and transit improvements is things get way, way easier once you start to kind of speed up that frequency, because it makes it so that students can just walk to the station without having to check their phones, try and figure out and schedule it. And that ease makes a big difference when it comes to whether or not students feel comfortable, or riders in generally feel comfortable getting rid of their cars, because they feel like they can just rely on that service. So when you're talking about making those transfers from cars to buses, that's one of the big things. So seeing kind of, if we really want to make that investment, make that case to the province, to the federal government, that we are interested in better transit, I think that frequent transit network and pushing forward in that direction is one of the best ways to do that and would make the biggest impact.
Thank you. And I recall there was something about being more transparent about that frequent transit network so that the public knows. And
it'd be nice to get some timelines on and how we plan to get to there, as opposed to just, we want to eventually be there,
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Damien. That's all I have.
Okay, Damon, thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
I'll now call on Rodney Chan, who is virtual, I believe, and has a presentation.
Yep, hello.
Oh, there he is.
Hi, my name is Rodney. I live in Waterloo. I just want to start by responding to KLG and her idea for the Jane's bus ride. I love that idea. I'm here speaking as an individual today, but I am part of TriTAG, Tri-Cities Transport Action Group, and we would love to lead or help out with the Jane's bus ride. We've already had members lead the regular Jane's walk, so we could be in touch, and that would be great. And as for the frequent transit network that Colleen James was talking about, Councillor James was talking about, we're kind of talking about transparency and the need for kind of a map for a frequent transit network now. A lot of the routes, I think over 8 routes already have this 15-minute base frequency and reliability. So if we put a map out there right now, it would help students and new people and seniors kind of navigate, this is where I can reliably just wait for a bus. But it also helps us year to year track our progress towards the frequent transit network. But to my presentation, I'm here to speak about the GRT budget, and I'm very concerned that we're doing up to 33 to 50% cuts at peak, especially during peak hours. This means buses coming every 30 minutes. Next slide. This is, like Damien said, covers a lot of, these are really popular student routes, but it's not just students. You can see the 13 covers a lot of areas that have families with seniors and children who don't have other options, and it's not covered by other routes. So this kind of 15 minutes is 4 buses every hour, and buses every 30 minutes means 2 buses every hour. That's cutting half of them. That makes diminishes the service quality quite a lot. Next slide. So I kind of shared all of this online, and there's quite a hubbub online. There's over 46,000 people have seen these graphics I've made, over 300 shares, over 600 interactions. Even though there's already many people in the room with us today to speak, I want to acknowledge that there's already been a lot of people online who are aware and concerned about these cuts, and people are watching. Next slide, please. Since a lot of people online couldn't come, I wanted to show kind of this kind of sentiment, what people are thinking online. A lot of people already say the buses are too crowded. Some people say the 9 was so unreliable, they literally had to buy a car. People are worried about, there's a lot of densification, new apartments coming that are justified by transit, and we're cutting that. And just a general feeling that the region wants them to own cars and just sit through traffic. Next slide, please. And especially on the 9, it's being cut every 30 minutes. People are already saying the 9 is unreliable. This person, Sean, he's an old UW grad. He said that the route has been terrible for over a decade. So maybe we should be focusing more on improving reliability, and maybe that's why people aren't riding the bus, because it doesn't come. Next slide, please. And just some pictures people have been sending me. This is the 19 bus. At 9 and at 10, it's crowded, shoulder to shoulder. Cutting it to every 30 minutes would mean even more people waiting at the bus stop and having the bus pass by them. I already know people who are experiencing this day to day. Next slide, please. And I know there's been a lot of discussion on ad wraps. I obviously support any revenue we can get on transit, but I hesitate when it ruins kind of the rider experience. A few years ago, we talked about wrapping the Ion, and the Ion is just such a gem of the region, and it would be kind of sad to see something that represents the innovation and infrastructure that Waterloo can build be kind of wrapped in having the experience ruined, and kind of signals where priorities are. Having these massive wraps on public transit means we care more about the people outside the bus looking at the ads than the people actually riding inside the bus. Next slide, please.
Rodney, you're down to 1 more minute, please.
Got it. So this is the 19. There's a lot of development going on that is already under construction. And there's there's so many units, hundreds of units, and a lot of these probably don't have parking spots because in their development application, they say there's transit here, we don't need parking. So then cuts to the 19 are just, they don't really make sense to me. Next slide, please. Here's more proposed development. Every dot is proposed development or under construction. Next slide, please. And I just want to bring it back to the frequent transit network and overnight network that was approved by the business plan. This is something we should be working towards. Next slide, please. And We Can Go is here, which is great. Hundreds of people took it. Next slide. And I just want to end with that the current last train, the 12:38 a.m., there's no way to get home by transit, especially on Sunday. So some opportunities could be expanding the late night loop to be Sunday. Right now it's just Thursdays to Saturday, and also extending times for the 7, 8, and the Ion to later. Thank you.
Rodney, thank you very much for your delegation. I see no questions, so I will now call on Caleb Jukes with the New Hamburg Board of Trade.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just here from the New Hamburg Board of Trade. I'm the president to talk about the downtown garbage collection. That is something that was previously approved and has now been nixed from the budget, is my understanding. It's really just simply for me to say that as a small board of trade, we provided the cans for that many years ago, the Santa cans for the public collection for the garbage in the downtown of New Hamburg. And if that budget cut happens, that we no longer have garbage pickup in the downtown, well, someone else is going to have to do it, but it's still going to be the taxpayers. So why not just continue and not make the change? To me, that makes the most sense. I understand that the garbage and recycling thing has expired and you have new contracts, but it doesn't make sense to me to have budget increase or taxpayer increases, but then to cut downtown waste collection and then make the BIAs or the municipal governments have to deal with that. So that's all I came to say. I figured it was better to show up in person than to send an email. Thank you for your time.
We
Yes.
do have a couple of questions for you. Councillor Solomon?
Thank you through you, Chair. And thank you very much, Caleb, for coming and speaking to council on this. I know that we had already had a conversation about it and that the Board of Trade is not in a position to take on that collection. But my question would be, if this was removed from the budget, would you see this as downloading of a responsibility that this government's currently doing, downloading onto another government without the funding?
Well, I can't imagine it being anything else, because what are you going to do? Just let them throw garbage in the streets? I kind of doubt that. So the only way would be downloading, because otherwise people are going to say, where's all the garbage cans in the downtown? And then they're going to complain to everyone, and that's going to be a storm on the internet, as it always is.
Thank you very much, and thanks again for coming to represent the Board of Trade in Wilmot.
Okay, Councillor Rodriguez.
Thanks. Thanks, and through you, Chair, to Caleb. Thanks for coming in. I want to say we've heard pretty loud and clear from many of the downtowns about what the impacts of this change would be, and one of the things that we want to understand is how we can make this more equitable in future years. So hoping we can find a way forward for 2026. But I guess just want to understand, would the BAA be supportive of participating in engagements about how we can improve the program going forward in future years and collaborating on new ideas?
Well, we would love to be included in that. To be honest, as far as our downtown collection goes for New Hamburg, I can't speak to any of the other areas, but for New Hamburg, we really don't need any changes. We really just want maintaining the current setup. We actually went down from nearly 24 cans to, I think, 10. And we also got different ones that were covered in, so we don't have people taking their garbage and stuffing it in there from their house, because it's just a more ergonomic design for that. So that has helped with the downtown cleanliness of New Hamburg. But any changes, we would be happy to discuss, of course.
Great to hear. Thank you.
Councillor Foxton.
Not to the delegate, but to council in itself. North Dumfries doesn't have it. Does Woolwich have it? Woolwich does not have it either. Does Wellesley have it?
Wellesley does, sorry.
We have had it.
You do have it. Okay, I don't understand why two do and two don't, but just thanks for the clarification.
I'm pretty sure. Okay, thank you very much, Cliff. I'll now call on James Hume. James, you have 5 minutes and you're virtual.
Wonderful, thank you. My name is James. I'm a resident of Waterloo, and I want to continue the discussion on the imminent budget cuts of GRT routes 9, 13, 19, and 30, which have said to be reduced to every 30 minutes from every 15 minutes to every 20 minutes. So I want to provide my 2 cents on my experience as a resident of Waterloo with a couple of these routes. The first route I want to talk about would be the 19 Hazel bus route. I have experience from frequently riding the 19 Hazel bus at all times of the day, as I used to live in the area of Hazel and Columbia when I was both a student, both when I worked at the university. I found that in that area, which was pretty highly populated with students, the 31 Columbia bus and the 201 I-Express Fisher-Hallman bus were continually overcrowded, and the 19 bus was beneficial because it provided some relief from those routes for those looking to access the university. Now, another one of my concerns with reductions to the 19 Hazel bus is that it was never specified how these service reductions would play a role for multiple versions of the 19 bus route. There's the 19A, 19B, and the 19. These buses already operate once every 30 minutes. They're just a bit staggered, so it's more like 15 minutes. So if this route was to be reduced even further, that would mean wait times for individual versions of this bus might be longer than 30 minutes. So that might be a concern, and that requires a bit of clarification from the GRT. The other bus I want to talk about is the 30 Ring Road bus.
So the 30 bus is a very unique bus, in my opinion. It provides a lot of accessibility to various high traffic points across the University of Waterloo campus, reducing the service to 30 minutes service from the original 20 minutes service means those who rely on the bus have to spend additional time waiting. Now, I think it's important to note that several of the bus stops for the 30 Ring Road bus route do not have benches or bus shelters. This can become a problem during cold or inclement weather. Now, one could argue that one could just wait inside of a campus building while they wait for the bus. Well, now the bus might not stop altogether, and that's not a great look for the GRT. While ridership appears to have decreased, frequent service is still very important for those that still do take and rely on the bus. That particularly extends towards those with mobility issues. Now, kind of just as a closing thought, in terms of all of these bus routes, all 4 of the ones mentioned, reduction of service frequency for these routes could have downstream impacts by interfering with bus route connections. This results in higher travel times for transit, which could potentially enter a negative feedback loop of reducing ridership, less budget, etc. All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, James. I see no questions. I'll now call on Farshid Saada Sharifi. I hope I got that close.
Pretty close.
Oh, good, good. You have 5 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dr. Farshid Sadat Sharifi, and I'm a member of Disability Community, a resident of Kitchener, who also works in Cambridge. I am here today to talk about proposed changes to taxi coupons, also known as taxi script. And it is very meaningful that this delegation takes place on December 3rd, the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. Tonight, I want to speak to you about the importance of taxi script or taxi coupon program, an essential tool to support independence, participation, and equal access to community life for persons with disabilities. Next slide, please. The importance of accessible transportation is deeply rooted in Canadian law and policy. Under Section 15 on Canadian Charter of Right and Freedom, people with disabilities are guaranteed of equal protection and participation and equal benefits of law. Freedom of movement, it's one of them. Also, it is the same under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act, AODA, and also the integrated standard of that act, which both of them are aiming for ensuring full participation free of barriers. Next slide, please. The proposal to increase taxi script from $30 to $40 while maintaining a value of $60 represent 33% cost increase for people with disability, a group already facing significant and well-documented economic barriers. Research from different entities, including Statistic Canada, shows that they are consistently facing different barriers. They are twice as likely to live in poverty, have lower average income and lower accumulated wealth, face higher daily expenses, and rely more heavily on paratransit and taxis for essential mobility. Raising the cost on a group structurally and historically disadvantaged by poverty is not a neutral. It creates a disproportionate and avoidable barrier, while all of the acts that I mentioned are focusing on removing and preventing the barriers. So the question is why you're adding barriers. You're giving a message to the community that we don't want you to purchase taxi coupons. Why? That's the question. Next slide, please. Under the integrated accessibility standard regulation, municipalities must consult with people with disability and their accessibility advisory committee. especially on changes that they might create further barriers. Myself, as a member of Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee, GRAC, and all of us are always available for agile consultations through email and also during the meetings. And we haven't been nor informed, neither consulted in this matter, which is concerning. And it is against the true principle of inclusion, nothing about us without us. I respectfully request the council to direct GRT to embed GRAC consultation into all, not selective future decisions that directly impact residents with disabilities. So at the end, next slide, please. Tonight, I am asking for 3 simple but yet crucial actions. Do not increase the cost of taxi script. Maintain all current access methods, including mailing, which they are proposing to stop, including mailing to prevent new barriers and ensure meaningful consultation on all matters. I want to finish this by give a personal experience. For me, taxi coupons are not luxuries, they are necessities. Tonight, I could not change my prescription, regular, repeated transport from my work to home, because when I called them, oh no, we need to cancel your first ride to be able to adjust your second ride. And then when I asked a supervisor to change the destination, they said, no, we picked up you on time. You cannot change the destination. I needed to get a taxi script to come here. So it is not luxury, it is essential. Thank you.
Thank you, Farshid. There is a question for you, Councillor Hunick.
Hi, Farshid. Thank you for coming today and pointing out the significance of this day in particular. I think one of the reasons that it is proposed that we increase the taxi coupon program is this idea that Mobility Plus now has the capacity to manage most, if not all, requests. Can you give the rest of the committee, I know you said changing your schedule for today was difficult, and you had to use taxi scripts, which is a little bit ironic, but could you give the committee some idea of how often you modify your schedule to suit the availability of Mobility Plus?
Thank you so much for your question. I need to rely on taxi script when I go for my medical appointments because Mobility Plus cannot guarantee that I get to my specialist appointment on time. And if I lose them, I will lose it for a year, which might be a matter of death or life for me. Another example, on Sundays, four Sundays, I'm going to Cambridge Mall for an initiative named Sensitive Santa. I need to be there at 8 a.m. No Mobility Plus bus is covering that early on Sunday because they assume no person with disability works or will have medical appointment on a Sunday morning. And I lived in Montreal and Ottawa. They are way, way different than us. And I would love to have a separate time with counselors to show how even 10% of what Montreal does here is not happening. So we are not even close to be efficient. I can give you hundreds of examples, but I stop here with 2 examples.
Thank you, Farshid. I just want to note that I feel your pain. I tried to book Mobility Plus to 2 regional events later this week, and 3 of the 4 trips that I requested were not available. Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate that.
We have more questions.
Sure.
Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fareed, I just want to say thank you for coming tonight and speaking out as a citizen of the community. I just want to say we're blessed to have you as a staff person, and I'm so lucky to have you showing me what it is like to be you and people who have that same problem in getting around the mobility, and you've taught me a lot, so thank you so much. I'm blessed.
Thank you so much for your support.
One more question. Councillor James.
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for coming and delegating today, especially you pointed out three critical things I just want to highlight, and that is just how essential this service is for you and many within our community. Identifying some of the gaps in terms of the service delivery. I know we are always trying to improve, but I think having you come and speak to the realities and the lived experience it shows deeper perspective for many of us, and that need to consult around some of the changes that may be proposed or implemented before they may come to council. I think that's an important piece when we talk about consultation with the community. I also just want to let you know as well, through our budget process, there's a motion coming forward regarding the taxi scripts and the fees around that. There's two. So, with yourselves and many others who are coming in who have emailed in, it is appreciated for us as we make these difficult decisions. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We are blessed to have someone like you specialized in inclusion within an academic lens, and nothing about us without us is more guaranteed with people like you. Appreciate it.
Okay, once again, thank you very much, Farshid, for your time. We'll now call on Matt West. Matt, you have 5 minutes, and you are virtual as well.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Before I start, can I please ask that you let me know when I'm close to time? I am legally blind, and I cannot see the timer on the screen.
I will do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Matt, and I lived in the Waterloo region my entire life. My family and I currently live on Albert Street, next to the Parkdale Plaza. I work at the University of Waterloo, and my wife works at the Home Depot in King and Northfield. My wife does not drive, and again, I am legally blind, so we depend entirely on public transportation to go around. First, I want to share my proposed service structure for the 19 to 9, how it would affect my family. Because daycare is expensive, my wife and I work opposite schedules to make sure that one of us is available to either pick up the kids or drop them off at school in the morning. Usually, my wife is the one picking them up from school when I drop them off. She finishes work at 2:15 and catches the Route 9 at Northfield and King around 2:30. Transfers to the Route 19 at Northfield Station, gets home around 3. Sometimes the transfer doesn't connect, and she catches the next Route 19 15 minutes later. This still allows her to pick up the kids from school. Our biggest concern in this proposed change would force her to cut back on hours, and it would hurt us financially. Having reliable, timely transit that connects between each other, along with the 15-minute service to cover delays or missed buses, is essential, especially during peak hours. I want to share an example of why maintaining peak service hours is also important. On November 25th, after dropping my kids off at school, I walked to the Route 19 at Hazel and Tamarack. The 9:20 bus never showed up, so I had to wait till the 9:30 bus. By the time we reached University and Hazel, the bus was standing room only, and by the time we hit University and Albert, it was completely full. A group of people left outside standing in the cold, forced to wait to the next bus. This would not have happened if the earlier bus has shown up, and it highlights how important reliable service is. There was also another incident that happened recently where we were both grateful the bus was running every 15 minutes. On 2 separate occasions, on December 1st, just this past Monday, my wife's bus drove past her at 6:30 a.m., and my bus never let me on at 3:05 p.m. at the different bus stations. The bus drivers drove past us without stopping or acknowledging us at the stop. As frustrating that this was, frequent service meant she wasn't late for work and we weren't waiting outside in the cold for too long. Finally, I wanted to mention the future growth in the neighborhood. At Hazel and Tamarack, a new apartment building is under construction, and on Quiet Place, 3 high-rise apartments are also under construction. With the rising costs of driving, it is reasonable to expect that many new residents in these apartments will rely on public transportations. Frequent service will encourage transit use to prevent congestion on the roads. I understand the need to be financially responsible, but a 17% decrease in ridership does not justify cutting a service by 50%. With new buildings going to come in the neighborhood within the next 1 or 2 years, with bigger population growth, and the University of Waterloo calling all employees back and removing the work from home, I believe that these service reductions is very short-sighted and will cause bigger problems in the near future and higher congestions on the buses. I respectfully ask that these routes are maintained and that cost savings to be found elsewhere. While I'm here as well, I want to make a suggestion about the senior pass as well, if we would go about that. With people who are blind, we go to the terminal to show them our CNIB card. So maybe we could get a proper card like that as well. But again, thank you for listening to me.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. I don't see any questions. I'll now call on Jonathan Lynn. Jonathan, you're in person and you have 5 minutes.
Hello, can everyone hear me? All right, so my name's Jonathan. I'm here to represent the University of Waterloo's NDP Campus Club, as well as the student body in the University of Waterloo as a whole, including transit riders such as myself, as well as others. As you may know, our club was active in the push towards bringing back the 91 late night loop and advocating in favor of the GRT's amazing 2025 to 2030 business plan, which would significantly increase service with a frequent transit network, as well as night transit, as well as new express routes from Conestoga to Cambridge. And while we are pleased to see speed and coverage improvements on routes 206, 14, 27, and 36, as well as new and improved transit services in rural townships, we believe that the decision to cut service on routes 9, 13, 19, and 30 are inherently short-sighted and actively works against the proposed GRT business plan. Reducing peak service and midday service to every 30 minutes disproportionately harms students as well as captive transit riders who have to rely on transit and have no other means of travel. This disproportionately harms students and faculty who attend the University of Waterloo, who rely on these services to get to and from campus for studying and work. As transit services become more unreliable, it leads to a death spiral where less and less people will ride transit because it's a less desirable option and waste a lot of time if you have to wait more than 30 minutes for a bus to even come. And as part of this, I think that transit is a very important and vital solution for our affordability crisis as well as for climate here in Waterloo region, because we are facing an unprecedented affordability crisis in terms of housing, grocery, transit, telecom, any kind of cost you can think of. Everything is more expensive nowadays, and students especially are really feeling the crunch. And I think transit's very important for a solution to this because transit is significantly cheaper than driving in most cases and can definitely ease the financial burden for people because owning a car is very prohibitively expensive for a lot of people, including students like myself. Additionally, climate change and global warming poses an existential threat to our human survival as a species, and we believe that transit especially is an amazing solution to sustainability as well. As more people ride transit, walk, or ride their bikes around the region, there's less need for people to drive gas-guzzling, polluting cars that waste space in a geometrical sense. I think it's very, very important for council in general to reconsider the cuts that are proposed for transit and the GRT and make sure that transit service increases and does not decrease. If we want buses to be more fast and frequent, we must make sure that the service increases. Please and thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
That's all I have to say.
We do have a question for you from Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Well, since you said please and thank you, people don't usually say please and thank you, so I appreciate you being really polite about it. I wanted to say thanks to you and others who've who've been online and who've come in person, and I assume took transit to get here, to delegate about this and to share out the information about how it's changing in that area and what you experience as transit riders, and the pictures that Rodney had shown about, buses that are crowded. So I just wanted to let you know that I do plan to bring forward a motion to request that we roll that back. So just stay tuned on that. Our motions are due to be in on December 10th, and then we'll be in the hands of council on that. But I just wanted to let people know that. Thank you.
All right, I'm very glad to hear that you're bringing forward a motion to reverse this, because I think it's very important that we do not roll back on our objectives for the 2025 to 2030 service plan. I really appreciate that.
Okay. Johnson, thank you. Thank you once again for your delegation. I'll now call on Bruno Bustos Alegria of Waterloo. Bruno, you have 5 minutes and you're virtual.
Good afternoon, Council. I have lived in Waterloo for almost 5 years now, and I rely regularly on the GRT bus 30 and 9, whether that be to get to the University of Waterloo, to get to the transit terminal, to get to the optometrist. A couple of days ago, I had to go to my landlord's office. I use this bus because the other bus signs on University Avenue or Columbia Streets do not get me right there in that area. So I would really like to ask council if another option can be looked at. I know it's a really difficult time with limited resources, but I know myself and many others use this line to get around. And also I would like to point out that without this service, having to wait 30 minutes would mean that I would have to walk 20 to 30 minutes, and sometimes I have the energy to do so, but sometimes the weather makes it very unfeasible. The sidewalks aren't properly plowed, or as in the summer we saw, it's getting hotter and hotter, so sometimes it's just not feasible to walk as much. And other bus routes, unfortunately, do not get me right there at the intersection of Phillip and Columbia. But thank you again for all the work that you do. But that was everything I wanted to say. Thank you.
Bruno, thank you very much for delegating, and I see no questions at this time. I'll now call on David Alton of Kitchener. David, you have 5 minutes, and you're also in person, I can tell.
Good evening, councillors. I'm here to talk about municipal finance strategy. But first, I'd like to be a little clunky and just thank the Regional's National Housing Day Committee for awarding me the Lynn McCauley Community Educator Award, and for you for funding the Plan to End Chronic Homelessness, which allows me to work with 35 lived experts to do community education on housing and homelessness. I've been learning more about Lynn McCauley lately. Everyone talks about her optimism and her fierce commitment to housing. At the heart of her vision was funding supportive housing, something her friends and family continue to this day, organizing a fundraising walk every September through the Lynn McCauley Legacy Project. So I encourage us all to support that. I want to reflect on Lynn's legacy as we consider this year's budget. Are we embodying her endless hope and optimism? Are we building housing? In the recent staff update, the housing team shared about several housing projects, including 3 expansions at Moorgate, Cortland Shelley, and 140 Weber that would add 466 units of housing. At the current stage of the budget process, these projects are unfortunately paused due to capital pressures and debt management efforts. What are these capital pressures? The largest capital project being pushed at the moment seems to be the police's $173 million communication center. Is this communication center as needed as 466 units of housing? Especially when Moorgate project is ready to start tendering construction as early as January. The debt management efforts seem to be your current commitment to a 5% tax levy increase. I've heard you argue that a 5% tax increase is necessary in the face of inflation and the economic climate. But are taxpayers aware that keeping taxes at 5% is blocking these 3 housing projects? Actually, when one looks at the budget reports presented to you, this 5% limit seems to be leading to proposed freezes and cuts in every department except the police, who are asking for a $20 million increase in their operations. But why does a 5% tax increase lead to near universal cuts and freezes? Why are we paying more for less? I recently read the book You'll Pay for This, A Layman's Guide to Municipal Finance, created by the City Project in Winnipeg. They've been noticing a concerning trend across Canada where budgets and municipalities are being squeezed by debt. This seems to be what is happening today here. Their diagnosis is that for the past 60 years, municipalities have built more capital than the tax base could afford. Another word for this low tax base, high capital expense lifestyle is urban sprawl. It costs a lot to service low-density housing. This has put municipalities into debt, and debt repayments are eating up their budgets, as seen tonight. But it's not just debt. Capital itself is a form of debt. Every road, sewer, pipe, and public building needs to be maintained and rebuilt in perpetuity. Spreadsheets may call capital equity, but to a municipality, it functions the same as debt, and the payments are long overdue. This puts you as council in quite the pickle. You have to pay off your debt, and as infrastructure crumbles, you have to fix and replace it. In this budget, though, taxpayers are paying more, but are getting less service, debt repayment, some infrastructure maintenance, and 2 projects for the police. This is not much of a vision to enter election year with. It feels like council is stuck in a cycle of managing decline rather than championing a future for our communities. If this doesn't change, we will end up bankrupt, like Detroit and many other American cities. The other challenge is that the province has stolen your planning tools from you. The countryside line, intensity targets, they help you minimize future expensive sprawl and maximize tax base per kilometer. Taller buildings are much more fiscally sustainable than the suburbs developers are pushing in many of your communities. You are reliant on the cities and townships practicing good planning to manage your budget. However, I argue you still have one planning tool remaining to fend off this financial disaster and make a more sustainable budget: social housing. You can acquire land, you can build more financially sustainable housing. Every investment you make into projects like Moorgate puts more of the tax base in your direct control. Every piece of your budget that you put into housing's capital projects offsets the burden of every other capital project, because at least housing comes with a tax base. Similarly, investing in the operations side of housing also promotes financial sustainability. Right now, your tax base is bleeding into homelessness. Homelessness is so much more expensive than eviction prevention. The more you are managing your inflow and helping people get out of homelessness, the more you are protecting your tax base and the revenue you need to invest in the future. So I'm encouraging you to rethink this 5% and look at the budget through the lens of housing and its beneficial relationship to municipal finance. And I encourage you to scrutinize requests from other departments that only furthering this this crisis of infrastructure debt. Thank you.
Right on time, David. Thank you very much. And we do have a question for you, Councillor Hunick.
David, I looked for you on National Housing Day and I wasn't able to find you and congratulate you on your well-deserved award and your tireless advocacy in this community. Thank you so much for pointing out that perhaps a lower tax limit is not the answer. Higher taxes would actually allow us to provide services to the people who are struggling. So I really appreciate that, as well as the way you inform the public of challenges to the municipal budget process. Thank you so much.
I was hiding in the back, so that's probably why you didn't see me. But I will say this is so municipal, this budget crisis informs so many of the decisions and the tough decisions you have to make, and you're making at the lower tier as well. But the public doesn't understand it. And I think there's a huge opportunity to educate the public on why municipalities are so cash-strapped and how capital is causing this crisis.
Okay, we have more questions. Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Nowak. David, I just wanted to say thank you very much, not only for coming, but you always have a thoughtful presentation. We're not always going to agree on what the result or the resolution is, but we share your desire to solve it. So thank you very much for coming in.
And sending you blessings as you make these tough decisions.
Yeah, one more question, Councillor Gowing.
Through you, Chair. Thanks, David, for coming in. And Commissioner Sweeney and I are looking at something next year to see if there's a way to take the pressure off of the region. So stay tuned for that when it comes to the housing side. So hopefully we can come up with a solution that helps everybody in the next year.
Housing is your future.
100%.
Okay, thank you, David, and thank you for your delegation. I'll now call on Chris Rocamini. Chris, you have 5 minutes. Did I get that?
Here we are.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. My name is Chris Ricamini, and I'm a regional employee at Sunnyside Home in Kitchener. And I'm also currently the chair of the region's Specialized Transit Committee. My wife and I are both blind. We live in the Stanley Park area of Kitchener with our 2 daughters, and of course our 2 lovely guide dogs. And we lead very busy lives, traveling to and from work, shepherding the kids to various programs and activities, and traveling to participate in many other regional activities as well. We do all of this through a combination of conventional Grand River Transit, Mobility Plus, and taxis. I'm here to express my concerns tonight about 2 changes to the region's taxi coupon program. But first, let me tell you a little about why it's so essential for Mobility Plus clients. Taxis fill an important accessibility gap that Mobility Plus is unable to cover. These are things like trips that have multiple stops, maybe dropping your child off at daycare before going to work. These are also last-minute trips, maybe a same-day appointment to see the doctor, or it snowed and you can't maneuver your wheelchair outside. And also, it's trips where you have a time constraint, back-to-back appointments maybe. And in fact, that's the reason why I took a taxi here tonight instead of booking Mobility Plus. Anyway, the 2 changes I'm concerned about. The first is that taxi coupons are no longer going to be couriered or mailed out to Mobility Plus clients, meaning they must pick them up in person at one of a small handful of GRT locations throughout the region. Let me highlight the difficulties inherent in traveling to pick up one's traveling supports. If you were to book Mobility Plus to go pick up your taxi scripts and come home, the trip would take, I think, probably 3 hours or more due to Mobility Plus's booking restrictions. Or you could draw from your monthly allotment of taxi scripts and take a taxi and go get more taxi scripts. Imagine how cruel and absurd it would seem if the provincial government told disabled people, we'll no longer direct deposit your ODSP check. You must pick it up at the office. My second concern is the proposed increase in cost for buying a taxi coupon book from $30 to $40. This works out to be an increase of $300 a year. The vast majority of Mobility Plus clients are elderly or physically disabled, which means that many of them are low income and would be unable to absorb this extra cost. This change, according to the proposed budget, would save the region only $65,000, but it would have a disproportionate and tangible impact on the region's most vulnerable citizens. Finally, I want to emphasize that, to my knowledge, these changes are happening very quietly, without any consultation with Mobility Plus users. In fact, I believe that many Mobility Plus users are not even aware that these changes are set to take place. These proposals were never brought up at the Specialized Transit Committee, nor were they mentioned at Grand River Transit recent Mobility Plus Day, which took place on October the 28th. These 2 events were designed specifically to consult with Mobility Plus clients and to gather their feedback. I am now left to wonder, how genuine are these consultations?
Hey, Chris, you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. Obviously, if you asked a Mobility Plus users who use the service, they would not have responded by saying, yes, please stop mailing my taxi scripts and raise my fees. But that doesn't mean that the consultation would not have been worthwhile. Does GRT know how much Mobility Plus clients rely on taxis? And is there another way to save $65,000 that would have less of a disproportionate impact on Mobility Plus users? It would have at least been worth the discussion. Ultimately, I hope we can find a solution that allows disabled people to participate in their community and to live their lives with dignity. That is what good specialized transit makes possible, and it's something that we should work hard to preserve. Thank you very much for considering this perspective.
Chris, thank you very much for delegating. We do have some questions for you. Councillor Hudnick.
Chris, it's Chantal. Thank you very much for coming today and for focusing on solutions rather than problems. On the conventional side of transit, we talk about the importance of speed and frequency to encourage ridership. And the desired speed is 15 minutes or less. Is it possible to book a ride on Mobility Plus in 15 minutes? And if you do want to go to a short outing, such as the bank or a delegation to regional council, is it possible to book your rides 15 minutes apart? Or if not, what is the true lag time in that policy?
Sorry, do you mean if the duration of the ride would take 15 minutes, or do you mean between rides?
So what I'm asking is, how much advance notice are you required at minimum to provide Mobility Plus? And then how close can your trips be booked together?
Mobility Plus does, everyone probably remembers longtime Mobility Plus clients about booking 7 days out, and that still is what's going to work best, is to know your schedule 7 days ahead, which is not always possible. They do now have some same-day availability, which can be helpful in certain circumstances, but they need an hour's notice. There's no guarantee you'll find a ride. And then, of course, there's no guarantee how quick the ride's going to be, right? You could go straight there, or you could pick up other people and drop other people off. Mobility Plus is very, very good in certain circumstances, right? When you have got a weekly schedule, like going to work, going to a day program, going to church on Sundays, and you're going to be somewhere for a while, right? But it doesn't sort of fit. It doesn't cover all these other types of rides that we have to take.
I really don't think that this is the best way to save $65,000, and I'm really disappointed that the GRT Specialized Transit Committee was not given opportunity to comment or weigh in on this policy change and its impact. Thank you for coming today.
Okay, Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I was going to say pretty much the same thing that Councillor Hunick said, that I just wanted to confirm that you said, pardon me, that you were on the Specialized Services Committee. Is that correct?
It's the Specialized Transit Committee. So it's at GRT at Strasbourg. I think it's not an official committee where anyone from council comes or anything, but it meets quarterly.
Okay, and so you're a member of that committee, and oh, you're the chair of it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you're coming in and sharing this information with us tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, and I don't know if you were here earlier when I think it was Councillor James who said she's going to bring a motion forward, or was Councillor Hunick? I'm not sure. There is going to be a motion. Okay.
And that's very good news.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Chris, thank you for coming in and sharing your perspectives. I think it's valued around this table. I also want to say thank you for your work at Sunnyside as well, recognizing that you are an employee of the region and doing good work. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. There's no more questions. Now I'll call on Edward Faruzel, KW Accessibility, and you're in person, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Edward Faruzel, and I'm the Executive Director of KW Accessibility. KW Accessibility has been serving adults with physical disabilities for over 20 or 50 years in Waterloo region. And I'm here today to talk about the Mobility Plus issues that Chris and Farshid have already mentioned so eloquently. Transportation is the lifeblood of a healthy living. And it's something that KW Accessibility has been involved with for over 50 years. Many of you may not know that we were instrumental in achieving the first grant to create Project Lift, which later became Mobility Plus. So we've been dealing with transportation for quite a long time. I'd like to talk about the increases to the taxi scripts by raising them by 33%. This is a lot higher even than most tariffs that our neighbors are imposing in so many countries. And the effects that those tariffs have are devastating. And an increase of 33% in taxi scripts would also be devastating to the people who need the services the most. Taxi scripts are great instruments for short trips. With Mobility Plus, I think what Councillor Hunick was trying to say is that in order to book a Mobility Plus ride to a bank or to get groceries, you can't get a return ride for at least an hour. So there's a wait time there, you're stuck there. And with taxi scripts, you can go there, do what you need to do, and come back much more conveniently, much quicker, and also without straining the Mobility Plus service, which is already pretty much maxed out. The other thing I wanted to talk about was not mailing out the taxi scripts and monthly passes to people. This is meant to be saving the region money. But in fact, this is actually going to be costing the region money. In order for someone to book a Mobility Plus ride and pick up their taxis and then wait for an hour and then book another ride to come home, I'm sure by mailing those coupons out to people, the mailing cost would probably be about $10 or $12. However, I'm sure Mr. Spooner can tell us that the average ride on Mobility Plus costs the region much, much more than $10 or $12. And there would be two of them. So by not mailing out these taxi scripts and tickets, you're actually going to be costing the region money, not saving the region money. The last thing I just want to mention is that transportation for people with disabilities is essential. If you remember back 5 years ago when COVID hit, and we were all stuck in our apartments. Everyone, even you guys, were all stuck in your apartments. I'm sure you remember the first week or two were kind of cool. You didn't have to go anywhere. But do you remember how you felt 3 or 4 weeks later when you couldn't go anywhere? You couldn't go visit your friends. That's how people feel that can't access transportation. Mobility Plus and taxi scripts are essential to a healthy living for people with disabilities. We don't use Mobility Plus because we want to. Nobody says, I want to book my ride a week in advance and sit and wait for a half an hour window and then maybe get a ride. We use it because we have to. And by increasing these costs to people who are already living well below the poverty line is detrimental to all. Thank you very much.
Perfect timing, Chris. We do have a few questions for you. Councillor Hunick.
Thank you, Edward, for coming today and articulating the issues so well. In your experience, what percentage of people with disabilities that you interact with can afford the taxi script program at its current rate?
It's already a challenge for people to afford it, and increasing it by 33% would pretty much put it out of reach.
And I think you already touched on the problems of being housebound, but I wonder if you want to speak more about what you think people with disabilities miss out on without access to spontaneous travel provided by taxis.
People use Mobility Plus not just for going to school or work. We have people who do a lot of volunteering. It gives them great satisfaction and provides services to the region in order to do volunteering at different agencies. If we increase those costs, they won't be able to volunteer. They won't be able to come out to programs. I've already had some of our members say to me that they can't attend our programs, which are almost free, because they can't afford increased cost of Mobility Plus.
Can I ask one more question, Chair?
Okay, one more.
How does it feel that no service users with disabilities were consulted about this policy change?
It's extremely disheartening. I mean, I love the opportunity to speak to you all today, but the fact that we weren't consulted in advance is definitely disappointing. There are many committees here, as Chris mentioned, and our agency, as I said, has been available for over 50 years, and nobody was consulted, so that is definitely disheartening.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Verbanebek.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Nowak, and I really just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for coming in tonight and sharing those concerns, but more importantly for all of the work that you do day in and day out, week in and week out, assisting those with mobility challenges and other challenges in our community. I think a number of us have been hearing from people who are really concerned about this. I know as someone who my late mother used to use her taxi scripts for a period of time, and I know how important they were for her, particularly when she was wheelchair bound for 4 years, and. Quickly, I said this when it was at committee. This is something that needs to change, and I do know that one of our colleagues is planning to bring a motion forward to address this, and hopefully it'll get the support of council on budget day.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I want to thank you all for coming and speaking today. You bring a real-life picture to the situation. I had the privilege of being on GRAC for many years, and some of the members would come in from New Hamburg and other destinations in Elmira, and that, what an amazing group of people, and what a privilege to work with them. Now, I also am disabled, but that's irrelevant at this point. I think, and I want you to understand, staff didn't do this easy or lightly. We as a council ordered them a percentage, and they did what they thought, hoping that we would see the light and reverse back on some of the things. So they would just followed our direction, and hearing from you and your voices, we hear you loud and clear, and we really appreciate them. And your story is non-confrontational, but factual and to the point, means a lot to us. And I thank you all for coming out and for what I've heard today. And I'm proud of you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Edward. There's no more questions. So thank you very much for coming out this evening. I'll now call on Robert Mellinson, and you're virtual, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Nowak, mayors, councillors, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Robert Melanson, and today on United Nations International Day of Persons with Disabilities, I speak to you via Zoom as a disabled resident of Waterloo Region, unable to access transit to attend in person tonight. That reality underscores the problem I'm here to address. Mobility Plus is falling behind the needs of people it exists to support. Using regional data, approximately 13% or 88,000 of Waterloo Region's 679,000 residents live with a disability. This represents nearly 34,000 households in the region. These numbers make one thing clear. Accessible infrastructure and transit is not optional. It is a legal and ethical obligation, essential for full participation in our community. Many of our mobility-limited residents rely on Mobility Plus for medical appointments, employment, education, and regular activities of daily life. When service is unavailable, delayed, or over capacity, people are not inconvenienced, they are excluded. Current shortfalls directly undermine AODA accessibility standards, the region's equity and inclusion goals, and residents' ability to participate in civic and economic life. Accessibility should not be a discretionary line item. It is necessary infrastructure for human dignity. Waterloo Region faces growing demand for accessible services, yet Mobility Plus has not kept pace. Factors driving demand include aging population, higher disability prevalence, post-pandemic return to community activities, and a reduced availability of affordable, accessible taxis and third-party providers. Today, Mobility Plus riders face significant booking challenges requiring advanced planning and competitive strategies. Bus overbooking, leading to frequent late buses, and poorly coordinated trips, including unexpected last-minute rerouting or unnecessarily long detours. I experienced this personally. Missed medical appointments, long waits, and uncertainty are part of my reality. I must plan long in advance, arrive early, and endure frequent last-minute delays and unnecessarily long waits, sometimes measured in hours, not minutes. This serves as a reminder that unreliable transit erodes independence and isolates people from community life. And there is a cost of inaction. Every missed appointment, lost workday, or homebound resident has downstream costs. Increased emergency room visits, higher reliance on social services, and reduced employment participation, plus greater caregiver burnout. Investing in more Mobility Plus vehicles, operators, and improved logistics is not just a service expansion, it is preventive spending that saves costs and protects dignity. To this end, I urge Council to prioritize 3 measurable actions in this budget cycle. Increase the number of Mobility Plus buses and operators to meet current demand and prepare for projected growth. Fund more efficient booking systems, reducing delays and ensuring reliable service. Improve integration with region-wide accessibility. Repair damaged sidewalks. Provide more curb cutouts. Improve snow clearing, and provide additional access points where people can purchase affordable transit program tickets and passes. These improvements are achievable, measurable, and will yield immediate and long-term benefits for disabled residents and their families. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Robert. We do have a question as well. Councillor Hunick.
Thank you, Robert, for coming today and for speaking to so many important aspects of accessibility. I know that our conventional transit system is considered accessible. Can you speak to what it is like to use that in inclement weather? Is it possible? Easy, hard?
I was not able to attend tonight because the route between my home and the Ion is covered in snow and my wheelchair won't move. It's not accessible. I cannot get to conventional transit. In the summertime, I use the Ion very heavily. It is a wonderful service. It is very accessible in the summer, but in the winter, many sidewalks are not shoveled at all. And I have at times been forced to use my wheelchair on the road, which makes drivers very unhappy. It's also not safe. So yes, thank you for that question. It's not accessible in the winter.
Thank you, Rob. If we raise the cost of taxi scripts, will you be able to afford them?
I already can't afford them, so I'm not able to use taxis. It's just out of reach for me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. No more questions. I'll now call on Craig Sloss of Waterloo. You have 5 minutes, and you have a presentation, and you're in person.
Good evening, Chair and members of Council. My name is Craig Sloss. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a data scientist living in Waterloo, and today I'd like to talk about how the region's data can be used to find long-term efficiencies in the budget. On the next slide, one of the budgetary challenges is that the tax increase on the police budget has exceeded Council's 5% target. You heard earlier today from Mark Eggers that one of the reasons for this is that the region faces significant legislative restrictions on what it can do with this budget. So how do we address the fact that you can't directly control the police budget? Last week, WRPS explained they needed the tax increase to manage an increasing workload. And you heard those concerns echoed earlier today as well. But hiring more officers is only one way to address a workload crunch. It can also be addressed by reducing the demands on WRPS. I'm asking you to look for ways to use the non-police budget, which you do control, to reduce the budgetary pressure on the police. For years, we have been in a vicious cycle in which preventative services are underfunded, calls to police increase, the police budget increases, resulting in further underfunding of preventative services. Then the cycle repeats. This is not sustainable, and the cycle needs to be broken if our region is to ever be 1 million ready. Let's look at what the data tells us about the region's options for using its budget to reduce police workload. On the next slide. I looked at the publicly posted data on WRPS occurrences, which includes the total service time of all units dispatched to a call. The top 3 lines correspond to incidents that can be reduced through increased investment in preventative social services or alternative emergency responses. Since 2020, these have been the 3 biggest drivers of increased police workload. Mental health emergencies can be reduced through improved access to mental health care to prevent them from occurring in the first place. When a mental health emergency does happen, a non-police-led agency, similar to the Toronto Community Crisis Service, could be established to handle low-risk calls. Intimate partner violence can be reduced by increasing access to emergency shelters for women and other IPV prevention measures. More generally, the demands on WRPS can be reduced by ensuring that everyone's basic needs are met, which includes housing. Even though Council has made some investments in prevention in the past, this is evidence that the investments made since 2020 have not been large enough to prevent a significant drain on WRPS resources. And we are paying for that today in the form of a 6.75% tax increase. What will today's cuts cost us 5 years from now? On the graph, I've also included robberies and break and enter for scale because these incidents were specifically cited by WRPS as regions for their budget increase. We all agree that these are serious incidents that have a devastating impact on those involved, but they have not been the main drivers of increased police workload over the past 5 years. On the next slide, the biggest increase in the number of calls over the past 10 years has been for compassionate to locate calls, as shown in the green line on the graph. These calls are requests for police to perform a wellness check on an individual. This is not a new problem. In 2016, when Tom Galloway was the chair of the Police Services Board, he sounded the alarm about the amount of time police were spending on these type of calls. By 2024, the number of these calls has increased by 35%. If the region had addressed the problem back then, we would not be in the situation we are today with rapidly escalating police costs. Galloway posed the question as to whether these calls should be handled by lower cost individuals in the police service or some other agency. Because council can't give operational direction to the police, your only option is to fund a non-police-led agency to handle these type of calls. On the next slide, I know I'm short on time, so I'll quickly run over this, but there is data that is collected by the WRPS that shows consistent evidence of systemic racism over time, which also makes it important that any non-police-led response be built from the ground up with an equity lens in mind. So on the next slide, I'll say that in conclusion, I'm recommending that you ask regional staff to develop a proposal for non-police-led initiatives that can reduce the number of cases that the police are called to handle. The approach solves multiple problems at the same time and addresses the concerns of multiple groups. Better outcomes for the individuals involved in these incidents, long-term cost savings for taxpayers, and reduced strain on WRPS resources. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my feedback.
Thank you for joining us this evening, Craig. We do have one question, Councillor Rodriguez.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Craig, for coming in. This is really appreciate the data behind what you've shared, and I think one of the things that we're seeing success in another regional program is in our paramedic service, where we've grown the community paramedicine program, and that's a program that takes the pressure off of like an emergency, highly trained emergency paramedic rushing to your house because you maybe need some care or something that doesn't need to be tended to in the exact moment. And so we've seen great success in balancing the needs of our system by investing, albeit fully funded by the province, in this community paramedicine program. And so I think there's a great precedent for scaling up these types of programs that direct the service type to the response that's needed. So thanks for sharing this insight, and I think there's a lot of good in here to take forward, so thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks, Craig, for always crunching the data. I know you've done it for some presentations at the City of Waterloo as well, particularly around sidewalk snow clearing, and it really, I mean, it was really helpful. So thank you, and this is a really interesting information to have as well. I'm just curious, like I asked Caitlin, did you do a presentation at the public consultation for the police board? Or had you put this presentation together in time for their consultations?
No, and I say there's two reasons for that. First of all, I'm specifically asking for non-police-led initiatives. So they don't have the jurisdiction or the authority to do what I'm asking for. So that authority is with this council. The second reason is that I live in Waterloo, and there are no democratically elected representatives from Waterloo on the Police Services Board. So I don't view it as having democratic legitimacy, and I've opted instead to address my comments to my elected representatives.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for that. And I also just wanted to point out, I mean, my understanding particularly with the domestic dispute calls and some of the mental health calls, is that, from my understanding when I've asked Chief Crowell about this and some others, that the mental health, there's impact, it's the impact program, like mental health workers will go with police, but police go first to just assess the situation and, you know, because they don't really know what they're going into until they get there. And then, you know, whatever transpires, then at some point they transition it to the mental health workers. That's how I understand how they operate with some of that. I don't know if that's information that, I mean, it might be information that you want to, talk to Chief Crowell about, because, I mean, that's the way I understand it, and the impact workers and when I've talked to them, have said that, they do want the police to go there first, because again, they don't know what they're walking into. So just wanted to provide that piece of it as well.
Yeah, so I'd say there's two answers to that. The first is that and what I'm proposing is actually two strategies. The first is preventative, right? So in preventative, it just doesn't even become a call, right? So that's one option, right? So once it does become a call, the question is, what do you do? So I would say that although there's been some success with the impact model, it does not address the police workload concern because you are still requiring police to be present, right? So that's why I would like to see some exploration of something similar to what they do in Toronto, where it's police don't come in immediately. Police come in once there's been a need identified. And I think what they found in Toronto is that in about 4% of cases, they did need to call the police. So I feel as though it kind of links back to the comments Councillor Rodriguez was making, that effectively we're starting to get kind of a triage system, right? Where you only escalate things once it's clear that there really is a need for police in the situation. I also think that Toronto provides an opportunity for us to understand how to make these kind of programs safe, because presumably they have already come up with solutions for this problem. So understanding what their safety protocols are, we can evaluate those, determine whether they make sense for the region, and adapt them if we think they don't.
Okay. Thank you for the information. It's a lot to think about.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, thank you. Really good information. I wanted to talk to you about speaking to the police board, and I'll tell you why. You said you want to talk to your elected official. Chair Redmond is one of the best elected officials you could ever have, and she's on that board, and she'll listen and she'll bring it to us. And also, and I think it's a great option what you're presenting. I'd like to find out more about the Toronto model. And I think the police are leaning that way. I believe Chief Crow talked about that type of program coming. So speaking with them and with Chair Redmond and this group, maybe we can make it happen. Your voice can be heard as long as you use it in all avenues.
Okay.
I just don't see it as being in the police jurisdiction. It seems strange to me to ask for the...
May not be in their jurisdiction, but they will open the dialogue and work with us to see if we could make it happen.
Okay, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. I too would like to thank you for your presentation. I'm curious about the most common is wellness checks. And if it is, can you describe what that would be? And what kind of organization would you see taking over that?
Yeah, so just to clarify, it's on a count basis that those are the highest ones, right? On a time basis, it's not the highest because they tend to be faster. So my understanding, so I'm not a direct expert on this, so I basically get what I understand from this from news reporting, is it tends to be things like a family member is calling to check up on a loved one, something along those lines, right? And I know that I think in Toronto, those kind of calls are also handled by the Toronto Community Crisis Service, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Okay, so it's the time it takes to do those calls is what you're saying?
Sorry, the opposite. The
It's
number
of them?
of wellness checks is what drives that, whereas the other types of calls, they're driven by the length of the call.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Greg, thank you very much for your time this evening. Councillor Foxton is back in the queue.
I just wanted to say that you're absolutely correct. I had a family member that individuals were concerned about and thought missing, and they went through the police, and it took a lot of hours and everything to work it all out, whereas another group or organization could have done it. So you're absolutely correct in that. There's a lot of wellness checks done for people not answering the phone in their homes or something, and instead of the police going out, maybe somebody else could or something, some other organization. A senior that falls and can't get to a phone. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a lot.
Yeah, I will say that surprised me too. When I saw that graph, I actually had to double check to make sure I hadn't made a mistake. I was surprised by how much larger it was than everything else.
Okay, thank you once again, Craig. So we will now go to Alex Ostriker with Conestoga students. I hope I have that correct. And he's in person. She. And you have 5 minutes. Pardon with the name, I'm sorry.
You got the name right, so all good. Through the chair, hello, my name is Alex Ostriker, and I'm the president of Conestoga Students Incorporated, the official student association of Conestoga College. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the 2026 budget and its impact on transit for students and the community, particularly the elimination of Route 110. First, we want to acknowledge the positive aspects of the 2026 budget related to transit. CSI strongly supports the region's commitment to pursuing the GRT business plan priorities, including the GRT's work to expand transit coverage to townships and increase frequency and speed through frequent transit network and service improvements. These are the kind of investments that will make transit an easy choice, reduce congestion, and better connect communities across the Waterloo region. We also appreciate the continued capital commitment to the new Conestoga College terminal at Dune and the broader integration of active transportation and micromobility. This terminal is an investment that will improve safety, accessibility, comfort, and the overall rider experience for thousands of students every week. Before coming this evening to discuss our concerns about Route 110, we also want to be transparent about our approach. CSI attempted to engage directly with staff before this evening. Unfortunately, we did not receive a timely response to our initial request for discussion, and when we did receive a response, we were directed to participate in public budget process and refer to public communications, and respectfully, that's why we're here today. We believe that post-secondary stakeholders should be able to have productive pre-budget conversations about major service changes aligned with the spirit of being good partners in providing affordable and equitable transit services, especially when those changes directly impact access to education, work, and daily life. We recognize that the region is operating under a tight affordability framework, and we also understand that there's significant revenue challenges and that Conestoga-related ridership has declined substantially due to federal policy decisions affecting international study permits. Students and CSI did not create these federal policy shocks, and we cannot change them. But we can work collaboratively with staff to adapt the transit network in a way that's fair to students and sustainable for the region. With that context, we want to focus on the elimination of Route 110. The budget proposes discontinuing Route 110 and expects Route 10 to provide alternative capacity. It is stated that ridership has declined 50% this year. We're not asking you to ignore this ridership data, but Route 110 existed before Conestoga Dune campus experienced exponential growth. In the late 2000s, Route 110 existed as an express for college students. In 2017, Route 110 had 75 boardings per hour, and Route 110 had 69 boardings per hour. This resulted in additional trips being added to Route 110 to address capacity issues. Route 110 was sustainable in 2017 when overall system ridership was lower than it is now. In this context, we're asking you to explore a solution short of complete elimination. We've already lost Route 110 on Sundays, and we accept this, but we believe alternative solutions should be available short of its outright elimination for weekdays. Therefore, we're asking the committee to direct staff to return with options for scaled back Route 110 rather than eliminating it outright. For example, offering peak-only express or reducing the frequency. A modest peak-only or reduced frequency route preserves a basic level of express service while still responding to current ridership realities. For many students, this express route is the difference between a manageable commute and a trip that impedes on their studies. Pushing all peak demand onto Route 10 risks longer travel times and increased crowding at times when students most need reliability. Additionally, Conestoga will become a transit hub in the future, so we should not make commute times longer between transit hubs for transfers, which could risk missing the next connection. Conestoga-related ridership changes are a real part of the funding challenge, but they're a symptom of a federal policy decisions, not a withdrawal of student commitment to transit. Please consider alternatives to the outright elimination of 110, such as peak-only or reduced frequency model. It was exciting to hear that there'll be a motion for routes 9, 13, 19, and 30, since our students also use those routes, and we're hopeful to see one for Route 110 as well. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
machines, for joining us this evening. And we do have a question, Councillor Rodriguez.
Hi, thanks for coming in and through you, Chair. I asked this question to the other group, but you got ahead of it and answered it for me, that there would be an openness to some type of reduced or peak-only service to help meet that demand. My other follow-up question is, obviously you have a number of other campuses in the region and just, that have varying levels of transit service, right? Your Waterloo campus has probably really amazing transit service versus maybe some of the Cambridge ones, a little less frequent, and just want to understand if, any thoughts or any comments on how that's gone and if that's meeting the demand of the students right now.
Sure, through the chair. Today we're specifically focused on Route 110 because that does have a huge impact on our students at our Dune campus. Our students, we do get positive feedback on transit from our students, and it's a service that they rely on and appreciate and are happy to have access to. I'd be happy to follow up if there's any other service, other areas that are needing additional service. I don't have that with me today, but happy to follow up with you if there is any.
Yeah, just any feedback as we go. It's always helpful to understand. Again, you have many campuses, and many of the other post-secondaries have other sort of satellite facilities. So it's just interesting to understand how students move between those facilities. And so thanks for being here and weighing in on this.
Thank you very much, Alex. And we don't have any more questions for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's working. That concludes this evening's delegations. I want to thank all those that have remained to the very end. Thank you for all the work you've done to join us this evening. There is correspondence under item 5, which is received for information. Now, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor. She took my picture.
I had my hand up trying to get your attention if I could say something.
Yes, okay.
Thank you. Tonight we heard some very compelling and real-life experiences from delegates on mobility issues and transit and getting around in the community, which I think have been very, very helpful, and real-life experiences as a, I've had a parent who has had these same challenges of booking and time, and so I understand some of the frustrations and the challenges. But I also want us to recognize the tremendous improvement that I have personally seen in the number of years I've been on council here in terms of expansion of mobility plus taxis and that kind of a thing. So I wouldn't want us to leave to think that while we don't have a perfect system, we haven't made some significant advances. And I understand we can do better. And I think our staff would love to have it perfect. I know my colleagues around this table would feel the same way, but I don't want us to lose sight of the progress that we've made. In the olden days, about 1985, when I was a member of Waterloo City Council, I remember the time we first cut the curbs on an intersection, and that was about 1985. So 40 years later, we're still trying to get that right, and if I remember correctly, it was $10,000 for 4 cuts on an intersection. So we're working at it. I think we've heard everybody tonight and the compelling arguments that we've made, and I think we all want to work harder to make it easier for everybody, but I don't want us to lose sight of the work that we have accomplished.
Thank you, Councillor Irvin. I think that's a wrap. So, yeah, we have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Gowing. Use your e-scribe to vote, please.
I'm in favor.
I don't see anybody opposed. I'm in favor. That's carried.